let's get to a state that would never be affected by a potential EMP that is caused by a solar flare because they live in the motherfucking Neanderthal era. Alabama, America's worst state, Mississippi's favorite state, and America's worst state overall. Why is it Mississippi's favorite state? Because, well, it's the one state that makes them look good in comparison. That's right. Alabama Supreme Court has ruled that embryos are actually people. Like, straight up, nut is a person. We're getting closer and closer to the reality that if you nut like I did in a paper towel last night instead of on your mom, I basically did some genocide, okay? We are getting closer and closer to this reality. Woo! It's fucking awesome.
From the Alabama Supreme Court first of its kind ruling, I know you've heard about it, on frozen embryos created during in vitro fertilization. Now, Alabama's largest hospital now says it will put a pause on IVF treatments while it analyzes this ruling. The court decided that frozen embryos have the same rights as children. Meg Oliver is here with more on this decision. Meg, good morning. There's a heated discussion on both sides of this issue.
There certainly is. Good morning, Gail. This case stems from a wrongful death lawsuit from 3 couples who lost embryos at an Alabama fertility clinic. And now the court's decision has left people with fertility problems worried about the future.
34-year-old Jasmine York is from Alexander City, Alabama. She's the proud mother of a 13-year-old daughter, but can no longer have children. So she turned to IVF doctors at the University of Alabama at Birmingham.
I have no fallopian tubes due to ruptured ectopic pregnancies. We're supposed to transfer back in January and have had a couple of mishaps. And so we were really looking forward to March 20th was when I was supposed to transfer.
Is IVF your last hope to have a baby?
Yes. There is no other way.
The university said
this is one of the craziest parts about it because, like, when you're so desperate to like control what women can and can't do to their bodies, you end up going against the ultimate goal the secondary goal that you have. The primary goal for like this kind of stuff is just straight up to like abuse women, control them, deny them autonomy. And the secondary goal is to use them as basically baby factories, right? They want to make women into baby incubators and nothing else. However, in many of these circumstances, like when you ban abortion, for example, or criminalize abortion, you end up creating a process where like women that want to have children, want to carry pregnancies, the term, end up fucking dying and can't even do their baby incubation duties. And this is the other side of this. When you actually say that embryos are going to be considered people, then women who want to have children, which is what you want them to have children, the baby incubators, are not going to be able to have children. They're not going to be able to incubate babies. Now, obviously, it's far more damning than just this, but this is I guess, dark irony. The dark irony of it all is that if you want to improve population numbers, and that's why you're doing this like anti-abortion shit, you end up cooking yourself. Especially because, and here's the reality, we know this already, there's so much empirical evidence for this. Say it with me. Criminalizing abortion does not stop abortions. Time and time again, we have found out that criminalizing abortions does not stop abortions. It just changes into back alley abortions. The number of abortions that women have do not change when abortion is criminalized. Criminalizing abortion just stops safe abortions. That's it. Are Republicans this desperate for voters? I think it's pretty funny to say this because this is an issue that actually hurts Republicans. I think they're desperate for control and doing fascism, I guess. because it makes no goddamn sense beyond.
In a statement that it was pausing IVF out of concern physicians and even aspiring parents could face criminal punishment following the state court's decision, even if the hospital adheres to the proper standard of care.
What are you telling patients in Alabama today?
We're telling them that there remains a lot of uncertainty. We're not certain what is safe and legal for us to do with regards to IVF.
Dr. Mamie McLean is a physician at one of Alabama's largest fertility clinics.
We're taking this day by day. Ultimately, we're worried that there's going to be fewer babies born in Alabama because of this ruling.
Last night, Republican presidential candidate Nikki Haley spoke to our Gail King on CNN's King Charles about the court's decision.
What the question that I was asked is, do I believe an embryo is a baby? I do think that if you look in the definition, an embryo is considered an unborn baby.
York.
Wait, what happened to Slay Mama? I thought she was so reasonable and grounded. I thought the Democrats loved eating her. I thought she was gagging, Queen. What happened? Democrats loved propping her up as the savior of the Republican Party. What happened? Why is Slay Queen not mothering right now? I thought she was doing a cunt quake on the Kuntker scale that is above the 8 magnitude. What happened? What happened to Slaley, Nikki Slaley over here? Oh, turns out she's just a fucking Republican dipshit. So it doesn't matter. Please stop saying these words. See Allah. No. God, I despise this shit, dude. Every part of this is just so busted.
Firmly disagrees.
These are not living children. If they were, things would be a lot different in my world and all of these other women's world. And we want living children. That's our goal.
The University of Alabama at Birmingham told us it has no idea how long IVF will be on hold. Dr. McLean, who works in a private practice, told us yesterday she was in meetings all day with lawyers trying to figure out next steps. Tony?
Meg, thank you very much.
Nikki Haley responded to the Alabama IVF ruling overnight with 2 days to go until the South Carolina Republican primary. She also spoke about Donald Trump's comments on her husband and military families. Rachel's on the trail in South Carolina. Good morning, Rachel.
Hey, George, good morning to you. And Nikki Haley has tried to walk a fine line on the issue of abortion and reproductive rights. And now she's attempting to clarify her comments after signaling that she backs the Alabama Supreme Court decision.
This morning, Nikki Haley trying to clarify her comments on that Alabama Supreme Court ruling on IVF after stating she believed that embryos created through in vitro fertilization are babies.
I didn't say that I agreed with the Alabama ruling.
So what is the, I love this take. By the way, me and Nikki are matching currently, which is pretty funny. She's like, yeah, they are babies, but we should kill those babies. Is that what you're saying then? Yes, embryos are babies, but we should be murdering said baby. We should be fucking doing baby murder. Hello? I'm Nikki Haley, and I love baby murder.
What the question that I was asked is, do I believe an embryo is a baby? I do think that if you look in the definition, an embryo...
Bro, this is the more insane Republicans get about this issue, the more they basically become the memes. The meme in this circumstance is, oh, do you think, like back in the day, when I used to argue this issue online, one of the questions I would always bring up would be, oh, you think embryos are children? Do you think fertilized eggs are children? So in that circumstance, if there's a fire in a hospital and you have one actual alive baby, like child, and you have 1,000 fertilized eggs, do you save? And you have only the capacity to save one of those things. Either you save the one baby, okay, that has been born, versus the fertilized eggs. That's 1,000 fucking potential life. Who do you save? You save the baby, right? And people would argue against that by saying, well, it's not the same. It's not the same circumstances. Like, obviously, there's differences here. And it's like, they have basically decided, like, no, they are actually children. I would save the 1,000 embryos, 1,000 fertilized eggs, which is crazy. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because to a normal person, this does not translate as like a normal thing. You explain this concept to any human that isn't like completely fucking brain poisoned and isn't like some psychotic debate pervert evangelical, okay? Even evangelical Christians would most likely, if they're not like weird debate guys, would hear that question and go, no, I'd save the fucking baby. What do you mean? That's a live baby. And I'm telling you, we are officially moving down the fucking pipeline and inevitably getting to a point where like nutting is actually illegal, which is awesome. I love that. I love that like they are leaning into the memes, okay? This is sickening. Ectopic pregnancies are A-okay, but no IVF. No abortion with this connotation. The IVF isn't real children, yet they think embryos are babies. Yeah. Do you think someone in the Republican Party might be trying to kill their own chances so Donnie doesn't come to power? No. I think that they are trapped. They are suffering from their success. This is a outside of Donald Trump issue. Okay? There's two conflicting forces at play here. Do they keep leaning into their audience? And if that is the case, they have to increase the intensity. Or do they now decide, okay, we have to dial it back a little bit and lose one of the major motivators for the white evangelical base that makes up a big chunk of their most passionate fans? This is part of the reason why I always used to say, I don't think Republicans are actually going to ban abortion. That would be unimaginably bad for them, because having that threat that they can always point to was great for them. It was a major motivator for them. And also, losing that would be unimaginably bad. Losing that threat and actually following through on it would show to the entire country how unpopular this is and how they were willing and able to do this undemocratic thing. And they did that. They lost a major wedge issue. It's very stupid. Can I claim embryos as dependence on taxes? Of course not. Obviously, none of that makes sense. There is no logical consistency here. Clearly, it does not matter.
Is considered an unborn baby. And so, yes, I believe from my stance that that is.
Asked about the far-reaching consequences of the ruling for women in Alabama, Haley attempting to frame the conversation as a debate over parental.
No, this is not Taliban-level governance, dog. Don't do that. Don't say that shit. Obviously, Taliban is very fundamentalist and get a lot wrong. But this is America's own, okay? Don't point to things that are happening in Al-Qaeda, okay? And then go, oh, this is just like those other guys over there overseas. Also, in many Muslim countries, abortion is legal, for the record. It's a legal procedure and oftentimes state-funded. So don't be like, oh, this is some real Islamic fundamentalist shit. It's like, no, dog. Hasan, #1 Taliban defender? Fuck no, I'm not defending the goddamn Taliban, dumbass. I'm parsing through this. I'm separating this from Taliban shit. You want to know why I'm separating it? Because this is our homegrown extremist fundamentalism. And for many Americans, they think it's only over there. They think it's only brown people that do this kind of weird shit. They think it's only Muslims that do this kind of shit. Not realizing that, like, we have our own fucking snow apes here in America that does that exact same shit. That's it. It's not Taliban, it's Talibama. We must take triggered keg W. Yeah. Well, don't worry. Once they make nutting illegal, you're going to fucking perma jail, Sailor Scout. Anyway, we are not civilized. We present ourselves as civilized. We act like we are civilized. We fancy ourselves as civilized, but we are not. This is important to understand. I want people to see that reality. We are not the civilized people that we claim we are, that we present ourselves as, that we see ourselves as. Okay? Speaking of unimaginably stupid things that the Republican Party is doing as they desperately seek out other wedge issues to look for, here was a really good, here was another great, dude. One of the things I hate about new Twitter is that, like, when I search shit on Twitter, it never shows me who I interact with the most. Like, I'm looking for Will Menaker here, and I type in Will, and it shows me, like, random people I don't follow in my search bar. I'm like, dude, I don't know who the fuck these people are. Why are you showing me that? Obviously, I'm looking for, like, at the top of that fucking search bar should be people that I'm actually following and talking to. God damn. This platform is so fucking stupid. Anyway, like I was saying, speaking of things that the Republican Party is looking for, here's the Heritage Foundation coming out against another fun wedge issue, I guess. Here's a good wedge issue that they found.
I hear from a great many young women who were put on the pill at the age of 14 and came off it, so maybe 10 years later, and realized they'd done a complete personality flip. And actually, they, you know, I was, you know, one said, and I thought I was bipolar. But then it turned out actually it was just this psychoactive substance that I'd been. What were they doing to me? And this is all, and this was all to the purpose of rendering a woman receptive to what is, for the most part, loveless and sometimes extremely degrading sexual access. And I struggle to see in what way that's in women's interests. And given the great many other things that, to my eye, are downstream of the entry into that paradigm, it seems to me that a good place to start would be a feminist movement against the pill, and for rewilding sex, returning the danger to sex, returning the intimacy.
she's pulling a Dworkin. She's like, was it Andrea Dworkin who said, like, sex under a misogynistic patriarchal structure would be rape in every circumstance, is what she would be, is what she's basically saying here. Was that Andrea Dworkin? I don't know, but I think it was. Anyway, she's like, she's doing that, but in a reactionary way. That's awesome. Femcells, rise up, baby.
And really the consequentiality to sex. And a great deal follows from an intentional reconnection of women's opting intentionally to reconnect with the fullness of our embodied nature.
I love that. A good place to start for the Heritage Foundation is against the pill for returning to the consequentiality of sex. Conservatives have led the way in restoring sex to its true purpose and ending recreational sex and senseless use of birth control pills. And this is from May 27, 2023. This is from last year, chat. This is not like they are openly fucking saying that they want to ban the birth control pill because their ultimate goal is to make sex not for pleasure, but consequential, a punishment. Sex is a punishment. Which, by the way, ending recreational sex. Now there's a political platform with broad popular appeal to everyday regular folks, says Will. Is a femcel a female terrorist? Is a female incel? It is Oh, yeah. I forgot to mention, by the way, the Alabama Chief Justice who invoked God in deciding the embryo case. Look at this fucking pedophile looking ass. Look at this pedophile looking ass snow roach. Okay? Look at this motherfucker, Chief Justice Tom Parker. He got the glasses on and everything. Okay? God damn. Chief Justice Tom Parker has long been revered revered by conservatives as an architect for the overturning of Roe v. Wade. This is, by the way, from 2006. Tom Parker announced his plans to run for Chief Justice of the Alabama Supreme Court in Montgomery in 2006. Okay? Alabama Supreme Court, by the way, wonderful place. Wonderful place. If you guys remember, we had, obviously, outed pedophile Roy Moore. He famously was on the Alabama Supreme Court, where he did wonderful, fun things. Like, I think he put the 10 Commandments outside of the courthouse or something. Like, so really good place overall. Here's Roy Moore. Roy Moore, of course, is the 27th and 31st Chief Justice of the Supreme Court in Alabama. Don't make fun of him. He's inbred. I will always make fun of him. You're on one today, Lamau. The do-rag changed you forever. Yeah. This is the world we live in, baby. This is the fucking world we live in. It's fucking dope. It's awesome. That's where we're at now. Moore sought the Republican nomination for governorship in Alabama in 2006 and 2010, but lost in the primaries. And then he also famously was elected again as Chief Justice in 2013, but was suspended in May 2016 for defying a U.S. Supreme Court decision about same-sex marriage, and resigned in April 2017. This was, it's always these guys that are like, yeah, gay people are pedophiles, and then, like, they are the ones who are actually pedophiles. You know what I mean? Roy Moore famously can't go to the fucking mall near his house in Alabama because the local authorities have banned him from said mall because he used the mall to predate on minors. Just wonderful, wonderful lineup these fucking conservatives have. You know what I mean? It's great. It's awesome. Sick. Ah. And of course, QAnon is involved. During a recent interview with QAnon conspiracy theorist, the Alabama Supreme Court Justice indicated that he's a proponent of the Seven Mountain Mandate, which calls on Christians to impose fundamentalist values on all aspects of American life. Bobo herself is a Seven Mountain Mandate adherent. That's right. Chief Justice Tom Parker's recent concurrent opinion in a case granting rights to the embryos drew criticism for invoking religious language. I love people being like, wow, so the separation of church and state was a lie? Yeah, no shit, dog. Laicite is not for Christians. Secularism is for Muslimans, okay? Not for anybody else. Be for fucking real. Secularism is for our enemies. Islam. That's who we use it against. It's not supposed to be for Christianity. One nation under God, indivisible. Hallelujah. Now, If you thought there was a separation of church and state, try taking a drive to Utah. Yeah. So I only use the Lord's name in vain. Anlo is a pro-Trump prophet and leading proponent of the Seven Mountain Mandate, a quasi-biblical blueprint for theocracy. These guys are so I'm getting a hiccup. These guys are so fucking insane. No Kai today? No, she's here. She's just sleeping. Let's continue.
Parental rights.
This case was based on and should be based on the rights of those parents for their embryos and to make sure that they have the responsibility with the doctors on how those are handled. Nothing more than that.
But the decision does raise questions about when life begins. With the South Carolina primary just 2 days away, Nikki Haley still far behind Donald Trump, ramping up her attacks on the former president.
And then you look at Donald Trump. There's nothing normal about mocking members of the military. There's nothing normal about...
God, she's such a pussy-ass Democrat. It's so funny. Like, obviously, when push comes to shove, every Republican is going to still show their true colors. But I love Nikki Haley for basically also adorning the aesthetics of the Democrats, which is being a fucking loser, being a petulant crybaby loser, which is what the Democrats are best at, right? It's great. It's a lose-lose. Like, she has the bad policies of the Republican Party, and she has the loser aesthetics of the Democratic Party. So if you want to know who is like the absolute worst person in their understanding of like American politics, look no further than the 8 people that love Nikki Haley. It's great. Are Republicans cooked after Trump? He's the only one who can sell the Groyper policies. Not necessarily. The Republicans post-Trump are going to be like the Democrats post-Obama. Okay? It's just a race to the bottom anyway. So they do have internal problems that they have to overcome as a party and steer the ship in the right direction. However, ultimately, it's not like they have really solid competition. Trump is white man's Obama. 100%. A charismatic orator for that party's specific policies. The Democratic Party's policies are also neoliberal in the same way that the Republican Party's policies are. And Obama did a very good job of basically neutering the left, destroying the left entirely, like leftist momentum entirely, by capturing progressivism and bottling it for neoliberal action. But his charisma is the reason why he was so popular, and his charisma is the reason why he is still seen as a very popular candidate. Especially after Trump, by the way, being sandwiched between George W. Bush and Donald Trump. Oh my God, what a beautiful situation. Obama will always be the liberal Ronald Reagan in the way that he is received by the parties. Like, he will always be defended as one of the greatest presidents of all time, even though he was not a great president. So, I don't get the whole Trump is charismatic. Everywhere else in the world, he's seen as an overly arrogant, dumb old man. Yes, because European Trumps, there are plenty of people like Trump in Europe, like corrupt, autocratic neoliberals, but they still carry the veneer of elitism. That's the difference. That's why Europeans look to Trump and think of him as a brash person. but he is very charismatic. He's reflective of like what the American hogs want. That's it. Because like, look at Berlusconi, look at Sarkozy, look at all of these other figures who were also very much corrupt in almost identically laughable ways in European politics. There has always been corrupt charlatans. I would say Berlusconi, one of my favorite politicians of all time. Berlusconi is like super similar to Trump in many ways. So you definitely have a lot of characters, but because they're European, they still have the European elitist veneer. Does that make sense? Trump, on the other hand, is like nouveau riche in the same way that Sarkozy was. However, Trump is very much like an American product. Orban was just a CPAC event not long ago. I mean, Orban is like the obvious analog, but we're not talking about that. I'm talking about like other European countries, like Western European countries that have their own versions, but people don't immediately think of those guys as like Trumpian. Yeah. Listen, I said this in 2016 that Donald Trump was very similar to Recep Tayyip Erdogan. Like, there's Trumpian figures all around the world. There are Trumpian figures everywhere. There are cathedrals all around for those with eyes to see. There are Trumps all around for those with the eyes to see. That's it. There are top of the hour ad breaks for those with eyes to see as well. Of course, sometimes you don't see it because you're already subscribed and therefore it doesn't bother you. If you want to be one of those people, then all you need to do is subscribe for $5 or for free with Twitch Prime by connecting your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account, where you get one free Prime subscription a month. Here's a 3-minute ad break now. France is getting closer and closer to the USA. Like, there's a part of the population that lives in an alternative reality due to the extreme TV. Yes, this is happening all around the world, okay? Fascism is on the rise globally. I keep repeating this over and over again. Nazis lost, but the idea won, okay? Liberalism carried the torch, and inevitably liberal capitalism will revert back to fascism because fascism is a necessity when capitalism is in crisis. Fascism reasserts Fascism reasserts authority when capitalism is in decay. When capitalism is in crisis, fascism comes in to defend capitalism. And capitalism's crash is inevitable. It might happen 10 years from now. It might happen 100 years from now, but it is an inevitability. Something that I see and try to urge against, but welfare state protocols have inadvertently extended a lifeline to capitalism time and time again in our boom bust cycles. However, the crash is inevitable. Marx was right. But here is Nikki Haley going back to the inevitability of fascism.
About taking $50 million of campaign contributions and spending it on your own personal court cases?
Trump has mocked Haley.
Speaking of which, DM25 reached out to me and said that they're going to put me in contact with Giannis. So I'm going to email him as well.
Haley's husband who was serving a 1-year deployment overseas as a major in the Army National Guard. Haley addressing Trump's comments in an interview with ABC's Eva Pilgrim.
We saw you sort of fight back against him when he mentioned your husband and his deployment. That really ticked you off.
I mean, look, it's not personal for me and Michael. We can handle that. It's personal when you think of military families. They go through a lot. Don't make light of that. To me, veterans are off limits. Don't talk about them. Don't say anything, because every freedom Donald Trump has is because of the men and women in our military. And he would never know it.
Nikki Haley has really ramped up her attacks on Donald Trump in the final stretch. The question now, is it too little, too late? She's still trailing the former president here by more than 30 points. And of course, this is her home state, Robin.
It is. All right, Rachel, thank you.
House Republicans are pushing on with their impeachment inquiry into.
All right, we're not going to get to the impeachment inquiry yet. I'm not done with this fucking abortion nonsense. This abortion of an abortion nonsense. So as we were talking about, the second Alabama provider has now officially stopped IVF care after court has deemed that embryos are children. This, in my opinion, is a devastating attack towards individual liberties, for medical freedom that women have, medical freedom that everyone has in the state of Alabama. It is it's also counterproductive. It's also idiotic. It also will backfire on the Republican Party. Love that, of course, the very basis of the Republican agenda is supposed to be small government, and yet they consistently push to put the government in between a person and their doctor when making medical decisions. Our embryos are now trapped at a closed clinic. The wrongful death court case also stemmed from a patient walking through an unsecured door into the freezer, holding the embryos, dropping them, and killing them. I foresee another, since conservatism is all about like scaling back on new scientific achievements, I think that like the next wave of conservatism will probably be going back to like stem cell research, you know, going back to the Bush era. Obviously, theory of evolution being banned in schools, and stem cell research being banned as well. I don't know if you can like put the toothpaste back in the tube, but I suspect that they will push for that as well, which is, again, self-defeating. But it's yet another mechanism of control. So we'll see. This is also, for those of you who don't understand this, absolutely on the hands of the Democrats for two different reasons. One, because when shit like this happens, they are supposed to fight back, and they do not do that. They don't do it effectively. They simply sit back and enjoy the show and take advantage of the wonderful election opportunities it gives them. That's number one. But the real reason why I shit on the Democratic Party is not the first reason, but it's instead because the Democratic Party, when they don't push for progressive legislation, when they are in power, because they don't actually move the needle, they don't dominate the conversation. So reactionary politicians dominate the narrative and find new wedge issues. If the Democratic Party were to actually push for legislation that moves the needle, that creates like unironic protections for trans people, if they were focusing on pushing some kind of gun control, even at the executive office, if they were court packing, if they were blowing up the Supreme Court with additional justices and whatnot, then the Republicans would at least have something to fight against. They would have something that they would have something to assume a position on, to separate themselves from the Democratic Party. But when there is no Democratic Party legislation, when there's no Democratic Party action moving the needle in the direction of progress, then all you're left with fake duopoly that we have, right? The false choice that we have, where you need wedge issues to separate the Democrats from the Republicans, is what Republicans decide. That's why they create fake problems out of nothing. They try to invent problems where no such problems exist. One thing that they tried and failed to do so was the trans issue, which is not an issue at all unless you are fucking brain broken. The notion that like trans people are somehow dangerous. But of course, they tried and did that with like bathroom bills, and that failed on its face. So they went back, they focus tested it, and realized, how can we repackage this? We can repackage this by talking about not just trans issues, but about the fairness in sports, trans women in sports. That's unfair because sports is one of the only places where everyone understands there's some semblance of meritocracy. So if they were to, package or repackage the anti-trans legislation with sports, then they would get a significant amount of, they would be able to get a lot more people on board. Now, obviously, the anti-trans panic is not a sole motivator for people to go out and vote. It only got, the weirdest people on board, people who were just like totally brain broken with transphobia. So it wasn't enough for them to win shit in statewide elections all around the country. The supposed red wave that never came in the midterms basically proved this reality. And yet they still kept going. They still kept messaging. And now we're at this situation where, like, will there be enough people that are brain broken with transphobia inevitably for that to be a singular sole motivator for people to go out and vote? Or will it be an inevitable dud that that doesn't really matter because Republicans don't even care about, like, legislating from the federal level anyway? That's where we're at currently. Very dangerous prospect, but one that is absolutely the fault of the Democratic Party for two different reasons, as I explained. One, because they don't actually push for progressive legislation that causes the Republicans to have to fight against that. And if there is no progressive legislation that they have to fight against, the Republicans will dominate the conversation with more regressive legislation. And if the Democrats don't actually put up a fight against the regressive legislation and set up defenses against said regressive legislation, you arrive at what is now colloquially known as the ratchet effect. Republicans push the country further and further into regressive policies, more restrictive, more authoritarian forms of governance at the state level. Democrats come into power because those policies are deeply unpopular and people are terrified of them. And then what do? Well, they calcify said positions and they normalize said positions, inevitably pushing the Overton window further and further right.